Before the show starts today, I want to take a few seconds to talk about the events of Wednesday. Today's episode is a day late because, once again, my hometown of Minneapolis finds itself in the spotlight due to the brazen murder of a young woman in the streets by the state-run terror organization ICE. The federal government has been targeting the city for the last few months with harassment campaigns, kidnappings, assault, and now gunning down innocent civilians. They create lies about skyrocketing crime rates and fraud, but all of these claims have been proven to be either outright lies or wildly exaggerated. It is politically motivated violence against a population that has rejected the administration's authoritarian policies. Renee Nicole Good was 37 years old. She was a mother, a partner, a daughter, an artist, a musician, and she was gunned down for the crime of being in the way. The government quickly labeled her a domestic terrorist and attempted to justify her death as an act of self-defense, but her murder was caught on video from multiple angles, and it is perfectly clear that there was no justification for lethal action. As the city once again takes to the streets in protest, just a few blocks away from where George Floyd was murdered nearly 6 years ago, I hope that the killer is brought to justice swiftly, the administration is held accountable for their actions, and that the city is allowed to mourn and protest in peace.
You're listening to Midlife Side Quest, the Over the Hill Gaming Podcast. Here's your host, John Wall.
It's January 8th, 2026, and welcome to episode 165 of Midlife Side Quest, the Over the Hill video game podcast. I am your host, John Wall, and every Thursday morning I bring you 15 minutes of video game impressions, industry news, and tales of a Gen X geek. Thank you for tuning into the program. Today, on this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about the upcoming games of 2026. But we start the show with a look at the headlines from this past week. Today's story comes from Jordan Midler at Video Game Chronicle, and it looks like Sony plans to use AI to come up with a solution that nobody asked for to a problem that nobody has. In an update to their previously filed patent, a report from the World Intellectual Property Organization lays out the details of the tech that would let AI assist players, and in some cases, complete entire sections for players in upcoming PlayStation games. It describes two different modes, one called Guide Mode, which would show you an AI-controlled ghost that would demonstrate how to get through an area or section of the game, and then let the player take control to do it themselves. There's also Complete Mode, in which AI would take control of your character and just do it for you. It's unclear from what I was reading whether or not developers would need to opt into something like this, or if it would be game to game, or if it would be just operating at a system level. What's weird is that with most things AI, they are creating a solution and then coming up with the problem. Like, there are ways now to do things like this. Adjustable difficulty sliders, accessibility options, tutorial videos, passing the controller to your dad so that he can do the hard part for you. I just don't know if anybody wants this. It feels more like something that they can show to stockholders to say, look, we're doing AI stuff too. Okay, so instead of trying to go through the dozens and dozens of upcoming releases, I thought I would just share the games that I am personally the most excited for. So here are my top 5 most anticipated games of 2026. And first on my list at number 5 is Control Resonant. The original Control was my number 2 game of 2019, which, wow, I didn't realize that game was so long ago now. In my head, it feels like, I don't know, 3 years ago. Anyway, I love the world that they built in that game. I love the look and the feel of it, the lore and the supernatural elements. It just had tremendous vibes, and it was a ton of fun to play to boot. This sequel looks to be taking things in a little bit of a different direction, with players taking control of Jesse's brother Dylan as he searches for his sister in a tripped out version of Manhattan. After both Control and Alan Wake 2, I have complete faith that Remedy will knock it out of the park with this one. There's no date yet on this, but they say it'll be out later this year. Next up is Forza Horizon 6, and nobody does racing better than Playground Games. And this time they're taking the Horizon Festival to Japan. The open world racer will supposedly let players race from the streets of Tokyo to areas surrounding Mount Fuji. And as a unapologetic sucker recently for games set in Japan, I am psyched for this. I really want to see how they do a metropolitan area like Tokyo. I don't know that they've really done anything quite like that in any of the Horizon games so far. Microsoft announced yesterday that Horizon 6 will be a big part of their developer showcase, which is airing on the 22nd of this month. So we should get a good look at the game then, as well as a release window for the game, if not a specific date. My number 3 most anticipated game of this year is Resident Evil Requiem. Releasing on February 27th, which is not that far away, the 9th game in the series brings us back to Raccoon City, and we'll have players alternate between characters Grace Ashcroft and Leon Kennedy. Ashcroft, I know, I've played all the games. I'm not super up on all the lore, but I know the Ashcroft name means something to Resident Evil. Grace's segments will be much more survival horror focused, while Leon's will be more action oriented. It's also the first time that the series has let you switch between first and third person perspectives, which is pretty cool. Man, I've liked them both in recent games. I really don't know which one I would do. Maybe I'd switch back and forth. Resident Evil very much falls into that comfort game category for me, and I'm very excited to see what secrets Raccoon City might still hold. Gears of War E-Day is my number 2 game on the list. Gears is one of my favorite series of all time, and while I really hope that we eventually get the conclusion to Kate's story, which ended with a cliffhanger in Gears 5, I do think it's cool that we're going to get to jump back into Marcus's boots and see how it all began on Emergence Day, 14 years before the events of the first game. What I'm most excited for, though, is that after all these years, they are still committed to supporting split-screen local co-op for the game, which is awesome. Not too many games still do that, especially big AAA games like this. So my wife and I will be sawing locusts in half together sometime before the end of the year. And finally, what is undoubtedly the biggest game release of the year, if not the decade, Grand Theft Auto 6. It has been almost 13 years since the last GTA came out. It launched on the Xbox 360, which is now considered by some people to be a retro console. That is how long ago that game came out. and the anticipation for this game is off of the charts. For all of the incredible open world games there have been over the years, nobody does open world design like Rockstar. From the great characters to the iconic music, which is always so great in these games, and an absolutely unrivaled sandbox that provides dozens of hours worth of chaos and spontaneous action. I cannot wait to see if, after so much time, Rockstar still has the juice to create a genre-defining blockbuster. GTA 6 is scheduled to come out on November 19th. All right, so let's finish this up with some predictions. First, let's look back at my 2025 predictions. I said that the Switch 2 would launch in June for $399, and it did launch on June 5th for $449. So I was pretty darn close with that one. I'm going to give myself half a point. Then I predicted that the big launch game would be Super Mario Odyssey 2, which was incorrect. Next, I said that Ubisoft would be acquired by Tencent, and while they didn't get acquired, they did finalize a deal for a major stake in new Ubisoft subsidiary Vantage Studios, which manages series like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six. So, again, kind of, sort of, I think that one's worth half a point too. In Xbox land, I predicted that they would not announce their next hardware in 2025. And, while there was the Xbox ROG Ally and ROG Ally X, that really wasn't their own developed piece of hardware. They were kind of a partner in it. So I'm going to give myself the point for that one. And finally, I predicted that Sony would officially discontinue the PSVR 2. And while they did basically ignore it for most of the year, it is still out there, still on store shelves. So a miss on that one. So that's, 2 points out of a possible 5. Not great, but not my worst year. So let's do 2026. And boy, with the games industry and the position that it's in, this is getting harder and harder to guess each year. I'm going to start out with what should be, I think, an easy one. I predict that Grand Theft Auto 6 will hit its November 19th release date. No more delays. This is the day it's coming out. Next, I think we do get a reveal of the next Xbox console. Xbox is at a really crucial point in their history, and if they are going to find a way to turn things around, it needs to happen sooner rather than later. And yes, I do think it will blur the lines between consoles and PC even further with the ability to access PC gaming stores. On the Nintendo front, I thought we'd get it last year, but I'm going to bet to see this year the announcement of a new 3D Mario game. Now, yes, I know that Donkey Kong Bonanza just came out, and that was the Mario development team, I believe. But it's been 9 years since Super Mario Odyssey, and that is a really long time in between Mario games. I don't know that it'll release this year, but I do think that we get the reveal. I think in 2026, we'll see the dedicated console market continue to struggle as components continue to get more expensive and more people decide to stick to PC gaming as console prices approach the price of a PC. I think it's going to become a tougher and tougher sell for anyone other than the most committed loyalists. And finally, I think we will get an announcement this year that Phil Spencer will step down as the CEO of Microsoft Gaming and the face of Xbox. I think Xbox is going through a pretty big existential crisis at the moment, and when they do launch their next console, I think that they are going to want to make a clean break, a dividing line between these generations, I guess, and to try to show that they are moving in a new direction. Now, whether that new face is Sarah Bond or somebody else, we will have to see. But those are my predictions for 2026, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But I have no doubt that it's going to be a very interesting year for the games industry. Thank you for listening to Midlife SideQuest. I appreciate you making time in your day to hang out with me. You can catch a new episode every Thursday morning wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can support the show by subscribing and leaving a review. Until next time, I'm your host, John Wall. Have a great rest of your week, and don't forget to save.